My father forbade me from attending the Christmas party because my younger brother was going to introduce his girlfriend. Successful. 3 months later, my brother applied for a job and Human Resources introduced me as the CEO. He was shocked. Then, my parents showed up at my house, but I called 911. Your presence would only bring shame to the family. That's what my dad told me 6 months ago when I told him I wanted to go home for Christmas. At that time, he had no idea that I was the founder of a company with over 150 employees. To him, I was just a guy glued to a computer screen, someone who would embarrass the family when Ryan, my younger brother, brought home his successful girlfriend for everyone to meet. After that conversation, I discreetly cut ties with them. But then, 3 months later, my parents showed up at my house. They asked me to get Ryan a job at my company because he's family. Keep reading, and I'll tell you exactly how I handled that situation. Hello everyone, my name is David Martinez. I'm 32 years old, and I run an artificial intelligence technology company based in Portland, Oregon. Everything I have today, I built from scratch with my own hands. I never had any financial or emotional support from my family. The family drama I'm about to share happened 6 months ago, last Christmas. After years of struggling with the arduous routine of a startup, my company finally stabilized. I've never really liked going home for the holidays. Whether it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, or family birthdays, I always dreaded it. I hated the feeling of being constantly belittled by my family. They always compared me to Ryan, their golden boy. Ryan is my younger brother, for years younger than me. Ever since we were kids, he's always been the pride of the family. Right now, he works as a sales manager at a company in Seattle, making around $80,000 a year, a decent salary for someone who's 28. And I've always been that computer guy with no future in my family's eyes. But if I was absent from family gatherings, they used it as another excuse to criticize me. That's when my mom would drop phrases like, "Your career isn't going anywhere, and now you're heartless." Or, "Why can't you be more like Ryan? He always cares about the family." They don't know that the so-called small computer company they've always looked down on is doing well. Right now, we have over 150 employees. Last year alone, we generated $2 million in revenue, and I'm currently planning to open a second office in Seattle. So why is it that no matter how successful I become, they never acknowledge it? They downplayed it every time I tried to share something about my work. Sometimes they even said I was a dreamer or accused me of making things up. After going through that enough times, I simply stopped talking about my work altogether. I remember that afternoon vividly. A week before Christmas, I was in my office reviewing documents when my phone rang. When I saw my dad's name on the screen, my stomach dropped. As always, calls from my family rarely brought good news. Trying to sound cheerful, I answered and said, "Hi, Dad. I was just about to call you to ask about our Christmas plans this year." There was a deep sigh on the other end of the line. Then, hesitantly, he said, "David, if possible, maybe you shouldn't come home this year." At first, I thought he was just being considerate. Maybe he thought I was too busy with year-end work and didn't want me to waste time traveling. Trying to keep calm, I replied, "It's okay, Dad. I can manage. Family is more important than work. I'll go early and help Mom with the preparations, as always." There was a long pause after that. I could hear the TV in the background and my mom talking to someone. Then, my dad spoke again, this time in a more serious tone. What he said next hit me like a punch in the gut. Ryan is bringing his girlfriend home to meet the family. She's a manager at a big company in Seattle, very successful and respected. Jessica means a lot to him. He paused for a second. I could hear him clearing his throat as if he was about to say something difficult. Then he continued, his voice cold and direct. "If you're there, you'll only embarrass Ryan. What do you think she'll think of our family if she sees that Ryan's older brother is just a nobody, someone who works with computers and has no future?" Right then, I felt something tighten in my chest. I was struggling to breathe. Trying to keep my voice from shaking, I asked, "Are you serious, Dad?" Without hesitation, he replied, "Honestly, you shouldn't come. Ryan is trying to make a good impression on Jessica and her family. Your presence would only bring shame to all of us." And just like that, he hung up. No pause, no goodbye. After the call, I sat there with the phone still in my hand, staring at the black screen. The office was still full of my employees chatting and laughing, but suddenly everything felt strangely silent. That afternoon, I drove home on autopilot. Red light, stop. Green light, go. Left turn, right turn, pull into the garage. Everything seemed to be operating according to a pre-programmed script. It wasn't until I walked into my apartment and closed the door behind me that I felt the crushing silence settle in. And that phrase kept playing, slow and clear, like someone had hit repeat on a voice recording. Your presence would only bring shame to the family. After a while, I sat on the couch, hands shaking, as I opened a beer from the fridge. The bitterness of the beer mingled with the bitterness I felt inside. For a moment, I wondered if I'd misheard him, but no. Every word, every tone, had been sharp and cold. There had been no slip-up, no room for hope. And then, all of a sudden, the memories of all the times I'd been compared to Ryan came flooding back, like old movies projecting in my head. I remember when I was 15 and Ryan was chosen as the starting striker on the high school soccer team. I had joined the computer club. That night at dinner, my parents couldn't stop praising Ryan. My dad proudly said, "That son of mine is amazing. He's going to get a scholarship." When I tried to share that I had just won first place in the state programming competition, my mom barely nodded and said, "That's nice, honey." Then she turned back to ask Ryan about his training. Later, when Ryan got a full soccer scholarship to the University of Texas, the whole house turned into a celebration. Relatives were invited over to congratulate him. When I got into the computer science program at the University of Portland with a partial scholarship, nobody even mentioned it. After college, Ryan got a job at a big bank in Dallas as a business analyst. It sounded impressive, even though it was just an entry-level office job. My parents told the neighbors proudly, "Our son works in banking. He has a bright future." As for me, I decided to launch a startup after graduation. I saved up $5,000 from part-time jobs and an old laptop. The first 2 years were the hardest of my life. I worked 16 hours a day and slept in a small rented office that cost $1,200 a month. Even during the toughest times, I never called home asking for money. Not out of pride, but because I knew exactly what they would say. "I told you this startup nonsense was a waste of time. Just get an office job like Ryan, something secure." Then, 4 years ago, Ryan, who was 24 at the time, sent our parents $1,000 so they could buy a new TV. The moment they received the money, they called me, beaming with pride. "Ryan just sent us $1,000, my dad said. He said he wanted us to have a good TV to watch." Then, as if twisting a knife, my mom added, "Why can't you be considerate like your brother? He's younger than you, but he knows how to take care of his family." At that moment, desperate for acknowledgement, I said, "Next time you need something, just let me know. If I can help, I will." That phrase opened the door to what became 4 years of supporting them financially. At first, it was small things. Every few months, Mom would text, "Honey, the fridge broke. Can I borrow $400? The following week, Dad would call, "I need new tires. Can you send $300? But then, 3 years ago, my dad had a work accident that left him unable to hold a full-time job. My mom texted me explaining their financial struggles. Dad's partial disability and her part-time job weren't enough to cover everything. So, from that point on, I started sending them $1,200 every month. Not because they asked, but because I wanted to prove that I could also take care of them, that I could be a good son, just like Ryan. For 3 straight years, I sent $1,200 a month, over $43,200 in total. And in the end, they still told me not to come home for Christmas because they were afraid I would embarrass them. As I continued to be lost in the flood of memories, a text from my dad suddenly popped up on my phone. Just one line. "Remember what I said, don't come home. Don't embarrass me." After reading that, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad to the point of breaking down. This clear, sharp feeling was settling in my chest. And that's when I made my first move. If they didn't need me, I didn't need to prove anything to them. Yes, in their eyes, Ryan was the golden boy. So, I no longer needed to fight for that spot, because no matter how hard I tried, it would never be enough. Right then, I opened my banking app. I scrolled to the automatic payments section, the one I had set up to transfer money to my parents every month. And without a second thought, I hit cancel. A second later, the confirmation screen popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment?" I pressed yes, without hesitation. After that, I didn't say a word to them. I didn't need to. I knew they would call, just a few days after Christmas, because I had scheduled the transfers for the first of every month. A week later, on Christmas Day, I decided to do something positive for myself instead of wallowing at home. I volunteered at a local soup kitchen. Portland Rescue Mission stays active during the holidays, and I thought this would be a meaningful way to spend the day. From 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., I helped serve meals to homeless individuals and struggling families. There were heartwarming stories and genuine smiles, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was doing something that truly mattered. That night, a post caught my eye as I got home and started aimlessly scrolling through social media. It was a picture from Miguel, my cousin, someone I rarely talked to. The whole family was smiling around the Christmas dinner table. In the picture, my parents were sitting in the center, looking cheerful and relaxed. And in the right corner of the photo, I saw Ryan with his arm around Jessica. They looked genuinely happy. The caption Miguel wrote said, "Best Christmas ever. So great to meet Jessica. She's perfect for Ryan." Nobody in that picture looked sad or like they missed me. There wasn't a single empty seat hinting at my absence. My parents were all smiles. Ryan and Jessica looked comfortable, and the aunts and uncles seemed relaxed. And then I knew I had made the right decision by cutting off the financial support. Yes, to them, I was nothing more than an ATM. If my presence only ruined the atmosphere, then stopping both was the best thing I could have done for them, and for me. They could enjoy their gatherings without having to deal with that computer guy who has no future, and I no longer had to play the role of the son who never felt good enough. A few seconds later, I turned off my phone, finished my mug of hot chocolate, and felt at peace on Christmas night for the first time in years. About a week after Christmas, just as I predicted, I got the first text from my mom. It had that same soft tone she always used. "David, can you check again? It's day 2, and I haven't received the money yet." I read the message, stared at the screen for a while, and then put my phone down without replying. It wasn't because I wanted to be dramatic. It was because, after all, after hearing, "Your presence would only bring shame to the family," the first thing they thought of contacting me for was money. Not a "Are you okay?" Not even a simple, "Where did you spend Christmas this year?" The next day, my dad called me 3 times in a row. I didn't answer any of them. A few minutes later, he left a voicemail. I listened to it when I got home. His voice was short and patient, as it always had been. "David, why didn't you send the money? What's going on? Call me right now." That time, I decided to respond. Not with a call, just a short text message. I canceled the automatic payment. After sending it, I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, when I turned it back on, I saw 45 missed calls from my dad and 12 texts from my mom. But I didn't call back, didn't read a single message, because I already knew exactly why they were contacting me. The following afternoon, I received a call from Aunt Carol, my mom's older sister. The moment I saw her name on the screen, I had a feeling it wouldn't be a pleasant conversation. In a stern voice, she started berating me. "David, you didn't come home for Christmas, and now you've stopped sending money to your parents. Do you think that's right?" I tried to stay calm and replied, "Aunt, there are reasons why." But she didn't let me finish. Her voice became sharper as she interrupted me. "Your mom came to my house yesterday crying. She said she doesn't understand why her son would treat her like this." There was a pause. I heard her take a deep sigh on the other end of the line. Then, in a tone filled with disappointment, she said something that hit me hard. "David, I'm disappointed in you. I never thought I'd have such an ungrateful nephew. Your parents raised you. They gave you everything, and now you turn your back on them." I felt my face flush, could feel the blood rising, but I kept my voice steady and tried to explain. "Aunt, I've been supporting them for years." She hung up on me right then and there. Perhaps in that instant, she believed everything they had told her. That same night, I couldn't sit still anymore. The feeling of being misunderstood, of being called ungrateful, kept eating at me. I got in my car and drove 45 minutes to Aunt Carol's house in the suburbs of Portland. When I rang the doorbell, she opened the door and saw me standing there. Her face turned cold in an instant. In a firm voice, she said, "David, go home. I don't want to talk to you anymore." Just as she was about to close the door, I said, "Aunt, please, just give me 10 minutes. There's something I need to show you." She paused, looking at me suspiciously. Then, reluctantly, she said, "Only 10 minutes." As soon as I stepped inside, I pulled out my phone and showed her the text from my dad. The words were clear on the screen. "Remember what I said, don't come home. Don't embarrass me." Keeping my voice calm, I said, This is why I didn't come for Christmas. Not because I'm cold or jealous of anyone. Aunt Carol's eyebrows furrowed, and I saw her expression begin to change. She took the phone from my hand and carefully read the message. Then, I opened my banking app and pulled up a complete transaction history. Every payment was listed, one after the other, $1,200 every month, like clockwork, for 36 straight months. Total, $43,200. Aunt Carol stared at the screen, visibly stunned. She scrolled up and down, reviewing each line. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. You've been sending this much? Why would your mom say? I interrupted her, softly but firmly. What exactly did my mom tell you? Aunt Carol sank onto the couch, clearly shaken. With a look of bewilderment on her face, she started to explain. She told me you were jealous of Ryan because he has a very successful girlfriend. She said that's why you didn't come home. And she told me, you only sent $200 a month. Ilukidither, unable to hide her in a voice. 200, Aunt. She nodded slowly and then added. She said, once Ryan got together with Jessica, you got jealous and stopped sending even that small amount. Her voice trailed off into a whisper. 30 minutes later, after I had shared everything, every detail, every moment that led up to this point, Aunt Carol stood up with a new look of determination. In a serious tone, she said, David, I owe you a sincere apology. I misjudged you. Now, please, let me take pictures of all of this. I asked, what are you going to do with them? And in a steady, unwavering voice, she said, I'm going to send them to the rest of the family. They deserve to know the truth about who has been taking care of this family all these years. The next morning, Aunt Carol did precisely what she said she would do. I didn't know what she wrote in the family group chat, but around 10 a.m., my phone started ringing nonstop. Dad's name popped up first, then Mom's, then Ryan's. I didn't answer any of the calls. Around 3 p.m., Aunt Carol called. This time, I answered. There was a short pause on the other end. Then her voice came through, clear but no longer tense. David, I'm just calling to tell you something. I didn't say a word, just waited. She continued slowly. Everyone on both sides of the family has seen everything. They're no longer defending your parents. People are disappointed. I could hear her sigh deeply before adding. From now on, the family is going to keep some distance from them. As for you, I think it's time people knew who you are. Not through your parents' stories, but through the truth. I didn't respond immediately, just sat there in silence. A part of me still hoped I wouldn't have to hear that. The truth that for them to finally see me for who I am, others had to distance themselves from my parents. But I understood. Sometimes you have to let old ties fade to clear your name. Just before hanging up, Aunt Carol said something I never expected to hear from her. I'm sorry, David. I really am. 3 months passed in complete peace this time. The company was growing faster than I had expected. Q1 revenue was up 40% compared to last year. We officially opened our Seattle branch, onboarding 25 new employees. I decided to personally oversee the hiring process to ensure we maintained our standards. At the time, Linda Harper, our head of human resources, was reviewing hundreds of applications. One day, she walked into my office carrying a stack of carefully selected resumes. In her usual professional tone, Linda said, David, we've narrowed it down to 10 strong candidates for the sales manager position in Seattle. I'd like you to review them before we proceed with the final interviews. As I skimmed through the files, one name made my hand freeze, Ryan Martinez. I looked at Linda, trying to keep my voice neutral. Does this candidate know I run the company? Linda, still composed, shook her head. No. He applied through our website and was shortlisted by the recruitment team as per standard procedure. We don't disclose the names of the executives until the final interview. I nodded and paused for a moment. Then I said, I'll handle this interview. Linda looked surprised, and rightfully so. I rarely got directly involved in interviews at this level. Still, she nodded slightly and said, Understood. The interview was scheduled for Tuesday at 2 p.m. in the main conference room. I was there with Linda and Jack, the team lead for the new Seattle branch. At 2 p.m. sharp, Ryan walked into the room, wearing a navy blue suit. He looked confident and professional, smiling as he politely shook hands with Linda and Jack. I pushed the door open and walked in as he settled into the interview chair. The moment our eyes met, the smile on Ryan's face completely froze. Maintaining her usual professionalism, Linda spoke. Ryan, let me introduce you to the founder and CEO of TextFlow Solutions, David Martinez. Ryan sat still, frozen like a statue, his face pale. His lips parted, but nothing came out. It took him almost 10 seconds to compose himself. In a shaky voice, he stammered, David, I didn't know you were the founder of TextFlow Solutions. Ignoring the reaction, I spoke in a business tone. Hello, Ryan. Let's begin the interview. What followed was 45 minutes of pure awkwardness. Ryan stumbled through basic questions. When Linda asked about sales metrics and key performance indicators, KPIs, he couldn't provide a concrete figure. When Jack inquired about client management systems and retention strategies, Ryan only gave superficial answers. It became clear that he had exaggerated his experience on his resume. He had presented himself as a senior sales manager, but he only held a junior sales position. Even the performance figures he had included didn't match what he described during the interview. Finally, I asked the critical question, Ryan, as per our company policy, we have strict guidelines regarding conflict of interest when hiring relatives. Do you understand what that means? Ryan swallowed hard. Sweat had soaked through his shirt. I understand. In my normal business tone, I explained, it means the bar is higher, not lower. We must maintain complete impartiality in the process. Do you have any questions? Ryan shook his head, unable to say anything more. Linda formally concluded the interview. Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch within a week. After Ryan left, the three of us stayed for the evaluation. Jack spoke first, straightforward as always. To be honest, he's not qualified for the position. Weak technical knowledge, and his experience doesn't meet the demands of the role. Linda nodded in agreement. I sat silently for a few seconds before giving the final word. The decision is clear. We'll reject this application. Following standard procedure, Linda replied immediately. I'll send the official notification via email. Linda sent Ryan a standard rejection email 2 days after the interview. It read, Thank you for your interest in TextFlow Solutions. After careful consideration, we've decided to move forward with other candidates whose qualifications were a closer match for the requirements of the position. I knew the fallout wouldn't end with Ryan. And sure enough, that night, as I was at home watching Netflix, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Missed calls from my dad, mom, and Ryan. I didn't answer a single one. The next morning, a barrage of messages arrived from Mom. David, how could you embarrass Ryan? He's your brother. From Dad. You better explain yourself. How could you be so heartless to your own family? From Ryan. David, I needed that job. Please, I beg you to reconsider. I read each message and then deleted them all. No replies. But they didn't stop. Later that afternoon, while I was in a leadership meeting discussing our Q2 strategy, Linda knocked on the door and walked in, looking a little concerned. She said, David, I just received a call from someone who identified himself as your father. He asked to meet with you regarding Ryan's application. I responded immediately. Linda, please let him know that all hiring decisions at TextFlow Solutions are based strictly on qualifications and company procedure. We don't discuss these decisions with anyone outside the organization, including relatives of applicants. Linda nodded and did exactly as I asked. That night, I sent them one last message, a group text to all three. Hiring decisions are based on professional qualifications, not family ties. Ryan didn't meet the requirements of the job. This decision is final. Then I blocked all their numbers. But I knew that wouldn't be the end, and I was right. After a long day at work that Friday, I arrived home and was stunned to see my parents standing at my door. I knew this wasn't just a casual visit. When I saw them, I opened the door and invited them in. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't want to have this conversation in plain sight where the neighbors could hear. We sat in the living room. The glasses of water I'd poured remained untouched. My father spoke first. He was trying to maintain his composure. David, we need to talk about Ryan. Before he could say more, my mother chimed in, her voice slightly trembling. Ryan is suffering right now. I didn't say anything, just sat there and listened, waiting to see where this was going, although I already had an idea. And just as I expected, my father's tone shifted. He leaned forward and said, more firmly, you need to give Ryan a position at your company. Family helps each other out, right? After that, my mom softened her voice, as if being completely reasonable. Ryan is capable. Just give him a chance, and he'll prove it. I looked at the two people sitting in front of me, the ones who once told me I would embarrass the family if I showed up for Christmas. They were sitting in the apartment I bought with my money, asking me to break company policy, all for the sake of family. Keeping my tone calm, I replied, Ryan was interviewed like any other candidate, and the result was that he didn't meet the qualifications for the position. Immediately, my dad snapped. Qualifications? He's your brother. You run the company. You can hire whoever you want. At that moment, I realized it. They had no clue how a real business works. They thought being in charge meant I could do whatever I wanted. I maintained my patience and explained, I have a responsibility to over 150 employees and our shareholders. I can't hire someone unqualified just because they're family. My dad raised his voice. It's your company. You can do whatever you want. I shook my head. No. We have a board of directors. We have investors. We have strict processes and policies for a reason. And then my mom chimed in. Just break the rules this one time, for the sake of the family. After my explanation, my father stood up. He didn't yell as I expected. Instead, he spoke in a low, menacing voice. David, if you don't fix this, we will take care of it. Right then, my mother's tone completely changed as well. Her voice turned cold. Do you think you can just forget about your family now that you're successful? Have you forgotten what your father and I sacrificed for you? I could feel the conversation veering into something painfully familiar. Guilt, emotional manipulation. In a firmer tone, I replied, I haven't forgotten anything, but business is business. I treated Ryan the same way I treat any other applicant. My father lost it after that. He yelled directly. If you don't give Ryan that job, we will go to your office. We will tell your employees what kind of person you are. The moment I heard that threat, I stood up. Not out of anger, but because I realized this conversation had crossed a line. I walked to my room, grabbed my phone, and called 911. When the operator answered, I calmly said, I need police assistance. 2 individuals are refusing to leave my property after being asked repeatedly. I gave them my address. When I returned to the living room, my parents looked completely shocked. Incredulous, my mother asked, You called the police on your parents? I nodded silently. I didn't say anything else. They stayed where they were, still thinking I was bluffing. 10 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. They were professional and respectful to everyone involved. After hearing both sides, they told me this was a civil matter. They advised that I could file for a restraining order if the harassment continued. Shortly after, my parents were escorted out of my house by the police. Just before leaving, my father turned and said, David, you'll regret this decision. My mother sobbed, You've killed this family. The following week, I filed for an official restraining order. The process was straightforward. I submitted detailed documentation of all the threats and harassment, including their refusal to leave my property after being told repeatedly. A judge granted a temporary restraining order, effective immediately. 6 months after everything happened, my life has completely changed for the better. The company has grown beyond expectations. We now have 180 employees, our Seattle branch is thriving, and we're actively considering expanding to California. More importantly, our work environment is based on merit, mutual respect, and genuine support. We celebrate wins together and have each other's backs during challenging times. As for Ryan, after that experience, he found a position at a smaller company in Austin. And my parents, honestly, I don't know what they're doing now. The restraining order is still in place. They're not allowed to contact me directly, and they can't come near my home or my workplace. I don't feel guilty about that decision. 2 months ago, something new started in my life. I started dating Sarah, a graphic designer I met through a work project. She understands the journey I've been through. She doesn't judge my past or the complexities of my family. She values the person I've become. And just a month ago, I launched a volunteer program for young entrepreneurs from complex family backgrounds. I share my story and offer guidance to those navigating similar challenges. Through all of this, I've realized that family isn't a reason to accept mistreatment. Love doesn't come with conditions or demands. And sometimes, the most powerful way to honor yourself is to know when to walk away. I didn't abandon my family. I set boundaries to protect my mental health and my values. And before I end this story, I want to ask you something. Did I do wrong by filing a restraining order against my parents? Did I do wrong by refusing to hire my brother despite the pressure from my family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear from people who have faced similar situations. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and the courage it takes to create healthy boundaries. I wish you peace today.